I'm a man who believed that I died 20 years ago, and I live like a man who is dead already. I have no fear whatsoever of anybody or anything.
Gary Webb. I am an investigative journalist, and in 1996, I wrote a series of stories entitled Dark Alliance, which was about CIA involvement in drug trafficking.
I knew a man who once said death smiles at us all. All a man can do is smile back.
We've opened Skull and Bone, the secret society. It's so secret we can't talk about it. What does that mean for America? The conspiracy theorists are going to go on. I'm sure they are. I don't know. I haven't seen the rest. Number 322.
I sad duty to report this afternoon that my friend and colleague, Tim Russert, collapsed and died early this afternoon.
I may die in this cell tonight or in the arena tomorrow. I am a slave. What possible difference can I make?
And no official of my administration, whether his rank is high or low, civilian or military, should interpret my words here tonight as an excuse to censor the news, to stifle dissent, to cover up our mistakes, or to withhold from the press and the public the facts they deserve to know.
What the fuck is up? Welcome to Already Dead, your weekly conspiracy variety call-in show with me and Austin. We just came off of... What's up?
I just said, what's up, buddy?
We just came off of a week with Nick Bryant. That was quite eventful. I had a lot of fun with that. I don't know if you had any thoughts after the fact. I know we did kind of a little post-commentary after that, but because he kind of had to leave a little bit early. But yeah, I mean, overall, that was a dope one. It was a treat getting Nick on here, and here we are getting back into the shit, into the weird, spooky world that we live in now, and what's going on.
My God, man,
Yeah.
Nick was just, man, that was surreal as hell for me just to be a part of that, you know. And by the way, half my mouth is still numb from going to the dentist, so if I look a little strange, that's why. But no, dude, I've kind of been in still of a sort of, I don't know, hangover type of scenario from that experience. That was legendary to be able to have a conversation with him. But I was hoping to ask him a couple of additional questions with just things that I was always curious about, like kind of where his mind was in regard to, you know, like I really never heard him say cover certain aspects of the finders and stuff like that, which I really would have loved to talk about. But you know, there's only so much you can cover, right?
Mhm.
But I don't remember, did we bring up Gary Caradori? Because I honestly don't remember at
I
this
feel
point.
like we did the previous week, but I might be wrong.
Okay.
I
I think that's what happened, actually. I think it was when we were just mentioning Nick or something, and you had talked about you had been going through the audiobook. I'm pretty sure is what happened, actually. But
Carrie Dory. Like I remember that was the one of the big twists in the book. I was like, whoa, because I don't know why I didn't expect
right.
what happened to him to happen. I mean, I guess
Well, I
I
mean,
should have seen it coming, but I really assumed he was going to get
Right.
railroaded legally, not get
Right.
fucking offed.
But I mean, the fact they're surveilling him so heavily beforehand, and that he would show up to like talk to a source, and the feds were already there waiting, and like, right, like that alone was crazy to me. You know what I'm saying? And then he's getting all these threatening phone calls and stuff of that nature. And then they go and seize all his evidence basically right after he dies too, which, like, you know, add insult to injury. You know what I mean? Like, that's absolutely crazy to me. But I mean, I don't know, not really. After you research topics such as this and like the octopus and things like that, which I heard the director of that series on Netflix do an interview recently, and he just struck me as, you know, he's clearly he was more of a photographer or something. He was more coming at it from a different angle. You know, he's clearly technically a journalist at this point, but I'm just saying, like, I don't know. I'm always looking to be a little bit more satisfied coming away from something is all right. Like, I know I'm not expecting someone to just tell me what I want to hear and give me some salacious details that kind of like lends credibility towards something that I'm hoping is the end result, as far as like some conspiracy that fills in more holes that would make more sense, you know, in regard to the narrative that I'm considering more to be legitimate. But
Yeah.
anyway, I don't know. I just was listening to this guy, and it made me feel like there's a reason that I mean, not saying there's not a value to it, because I do really believe that the fact that was on Netflix in the first place, just covering the octopus murders, just leaving it in a way open-ended to where it's like you kind of have to make certain decisions on your own, and maybe certain threads weren't tugged on as maybe, you know, I think they should have been prioritized a little more, or whatever the case is. It's like, I did find it interesting what he had to say, though, was that so many different people come to that case from all these different angles, right? Like, it's either, you know, the cabs on Indian Reservation and the triple homicide of Fred Alvarez, or it's, you know, the Inslaw software, right? Or it, you know, which is literally where Danny came from. What he was a tech writer, right? Writing for a tech magazine, and so it was more his beat in the first place. Or it's Whack and Hunt, you know, and it's like the private mercenary aspect of all of this, right? And different private companies and organizations that they use throughout, that intelligence uses as cutouts, and flat out, I mean, creates out of whole cloth, right? I mean, how many different cases can we point to where that's the case? But anyway, I did find it interesting, though. At least it was cool. I think it was an interview with, I forget the guy's name, but he was definitely involved with creating the Netflix series for Octopus. But I know it was with, I believe it was an interview with Monica Perez. But anyway, it was pretty good. But yeah, I don't know, man. I'm a little skeptical of certain things when it comes to like saying that Gary Webb committed suicide for real. Like, I don't know. That's a little right.
By the way, Adam mentioned in the chat, our producer, and I actually recall it now. I believe the guys who did the Netflix documentary were on Nick Bryant's podcast, for those who are interested. I did want to address a couple chats. By the way, for those, someone says, is this on instead of Tower Gang tonight? Did TG stream last night? Yes, we had Owen Benjamin on last night, Tower Gang. We normally do this show, Already Dead, on Tuesdays at 9:30. Every now and then we move it around. Today, obviously, I swapped days because to accommodate Owen, we went on a Tuesday, and so I just swapped days. So here we are on a Wednesday. I knew we'd accidentally catfish some Tower Gang people into watching it. I do want to let you guys know I have my own separate channel, No Way Jose. I've just also been streaming to Tower Gang just because why not? There's nothing going on to get some more people. It's also a call-in show, so it helps to get a bigger grouping to get more people to call in. So for you guys in there, we normally don't address the chat either. So like the chat until the second half of the show. Like the second half of the show is like the call-in portion. So about 45 minutes to an hour into the show, we'll swap over to the call-in portion, call-in/chat. So we'll kind of go through the chat, see what questions, comments, whatever you guys have. We'll bring those up. We'll also bring up the call-in number. You guys can call in, ask us questions. Also, patrons, I don't know if Austin's offering this as a perk on his yet, but for patrons of mine and maybe Austin's, I'm not sure, you guys also get a StreamYard link. So if you want to, you guys can come on up and talk to us just as if it was me or Austin kind of deal. Just be one of the talking heads on here. So, yeah, just letting you guys know that is an option. You guys, if you do want to stick around, this is a very different beat than Tower Gang. I get it if it's not your thing. It is what it is. So whatever. This is my parapolitics show, call-in show. So we're kind of covering the whatever the hot conspiracy / parapolitics topics of the day, and that's kind of what we're doing today. I guess I think one of the biggest things that happened this week is the Iranian president died, which I do want to make a point to add. I believe. I don't know the exact specifics on how Iran's government works, but I'm pretty sure it's kind of similar to the concept of kind of like, say, something like Israel. Israel is a president as well, for those who don't know. It's not Netanyahu. Netanyahu is their prime minister, I believe. So they have a similar thing with Iran, where they have, the Ayatollah, who is like the religious leader, but I want to say he's essentially basically the leader. And then they have a president. I don't know enough to know. I don't know enough to know the specifics of like what one does. But yeah, there you go. There, that guy with the silly hat. But yeah, generally these guys are So the president dying, it's like a lot of people I guess it is kind of a big deal. I don't know to what extent how big of a deal it is. But it's not like the main dude died. But I mean, I guess you could say that maybe that's like if this was done by some other actors, as opposed to just being a weather thing, as many people think, then that would hint towards maybe they're sending them a message, but not as big of a message as like, oh my God, it's World War III type thing. I mean, I guess you could say that'd be the case. I'm not sure. But yeah, Austin, I don't know if you've looked into this a little bit more than I have. I know the whole thing is his helicopter crashed and it was weather, so everyone's always obviously jumping to weather Jews. So I don't know. I don't know if you have any thoughts. I mean, I really do think the specifics matter. I don't know if you've looked into the specifics, so I know with the weather thing. So now, if there was a choice that was made, knowing that this was going to be that there was shit weather, and they made that executive call to say fuck it, we're flying, then obviously it's like I don't know, unless you're saying it blew up or something. I don't really, I don't know. I mean, the same thing happened with one of the Kennedys, right? I believe when the Kennedy, it wasn't a helicopter, it was like his private plane, I believe. What was it? Kennedy Jr., I believe, or something?
JFK Jr., I believe,
yeah. So I believe he died too. I know there's in a similar type situation with bad weather. So, but yeah, I don't know. So I don't know. Do you think it was a weather machine? Do you think they were off? I will say just the simple fact that guy died, considering the current situation. I don't know. It makes me feel like it was, but I don't know. I mean, weirder things have happened that it's just. He could have just conveniently died at that point in time. I have no idea. I don't know if you have any thoughts on the matter. If you've seen anything that lends itself to one way or another. Otherwise, I think we're just kind of guessing in the dark here.
Yeah, we're poking around in the dark in a way because there's just nothing tangible that I could find as of yet that can, in a corroborated way, like really point to anything that it even kind of. I mean, beyond the fact of the political connection here, because clearly that's the main thing that causes pause. But I would say like the official narrative is it's a technical failure and it was caused by okay. Hey, it's possible, I mean, I know that weather modification is 100% a reality, but
they brag about it now.
Oh yeah, no doubt.
Like 5 years ago, it was like, oh, crazy conspiracy person. Now they brag about it while also. So see, you can see how this is framed. Do Jewish bankers control the weather? Okay, right. I don't think specifically Jewish bankers control the weather.
Right.
I think there are some components of certain governments. Maybe some more on the up and up, and some more like black budget type shit that do stuff like this. So
right.
Now, do I think there are Jewish bankers that after they clock out go, oh, I got to do my part-time shift over at the weather factory? I don't think so.
Right. Yeah, and that's another thing is like how, like, and I'm not questioning like the sophisticated nature of some of the capabilities of like DARPA and clearly the HARP and that's more in line with the weather modification and like my thing is like I'm not entirely certain how accurate they are. I've heard that they can be fairly accurate with different scenarios of what type of weather modification they're attempting to wield. But yeah, and by the way, that reminds me, like, you look at anyone has any real value, that holds any real value when it comes to, I don't know, performing research in certain circles, like, let's say, Eustace Mullins, I use as an example because of the Committee of 300 and, you know, the Club of Rome and all of those different things. But Eustace Mullins, when he wrote the book, The World Order, I believe was the name of the book, him, his mentor, I mean, just anyone around that, anybody who was touching these taboo subjects in this time, like, especially, like, if you were in your heyday, kind of in the Gunderson period in the late 80s, early 90s, like, they immediately correlated you with, I think it fell in perfectly with, like, the Tim McVeigh, Pat Con era of, you're a neo-Nazi, you absolutely, are anti-Semitic. And so if you look up any one of these people just on its face, and I saw this happen to Tripoli when he went on Joe Rogan, like, at some point, one of his most recent appearances, but I saw, like, and sometimes he won't do himself, any favors occasionally, just by the way he'll package it. But at the same time, it's like, I noticed that I think he even mentioned Eustace or someone like that. And I forget in what context. It was like, what's the name of the Operation High Jump? I think the Antarctica thing and the Admiral Byrd shit, right? With
Have I ever told you
Hollow Earth shit.
Have I told you about Admiral Byrd?
No, I don't
no,
think
my wife's a descendant of his.
Shut the fuck up.
Yeah, it's
That's
like her
crazy.
great uncle or great uncle or some shit.
Wow.
Her family still literally lives on the land.
What?
On his land. So, like, because I guess, and I think there's weird lore. I'm gonna have to get them. I've actually had Shane Cashman. I told him about it. I don't know why. I don't know if it's some phone call or what. Because we've kind of corresponded more than just on shows. And
Right.
he was like legit, like, hey, if you ever like go searching around in any of their attics or hear anything, or just kind of let me know. So one of these days, if I go up to Virginia, I gotta go check that out. Oh yeah, no, she's a descendant of Admiral Byrd.
That would be insane.
Her family are the Byrds.
Wow.
They're still Birds.
That is so amazing, man. That is insane.
It was funny when around the time I met her, she mentioned that, just kind of like, oh, cool, gee whiz, like some guy who went to go explore Antarctica, and we didn't know anything about it. And then, like, I don't know, past few years, kind of got more into the parapolitics, conspiracy world.
Wow.
And then found out about Operation High Jump, and I was like, holy fuck.
Is there any family secrets? Not like clearly any smoking guns, but like any opinions that are interesting, unique, or something?
I've heard murmurs. The problem is, I wish I had known this earlier.
Yeah.
Because her family, like my wife is like a year younger than me, so like 32. But her mom had her when she was like really old, like in her like kind of like probably late 30s, mid 30s, something like that. So she's kind of older, also not in great health. And then all her siblings are around the same age, and they're the family I'm talking about. Her kind of like large country family. They kind of grew up in a farm in Virginia on that land.
Okay.
They kind of been working that land for forever, because essentially, I guess he got money after that. I guess he shortly after kind of bounced out, kind of bought some land for the family. I guess it was for him and his brother. There was some sort of weird family falling out at some point where there was like land disputes or something. There is. But anyways, what I'm getting at is, I kind of skipped past it, it was like probably 5+ years ago, her granddad and grandma both kind of died within a couple of years of each other. And those would have been the ones to talk to about this shit. So had I known, and so, I have heard things from, like, kind of like through the grapevine from my wife, that heard from like one of her aunts who was kind of retelling stories that they heard from like their mother or their father. And like, yeah, they definitely are like, I guess they kind of openly talked about it. Just kind of like, yeah, that was weird. Like, and it was weird because they're kind of like a straight lace, like not conspiracy. They're just kind of like, yeah, some weird shit is going on down there. All right, let's do another day. Like, so like, I don't know. I mean, so yeah, I think I wouldn't be surprised if I dig around in one of those attics one of those days, find some of his like stuff, because I think they said that he had like some memorabilia and stuff that was still around. So, but it's kind
Wow.
of like all shit that's up in stores. They're all kind of like elderly people up there, so it's
Right.
like getting any of them to like go dig through all this shit is like kind of a chore. So I don't know. I mean, there could be for all I know, there could be a journal laying around somewhere. So. Because
Dude,
yeah, which that was a big thing. I believe there was wasn't that like a big part of the story too? Is that there was supposedly,
his
um,
journal,
yeah,
I
and then
believe.
I
Yeah.
think later people said there was some sort of forgery or something. I
Yeah.
don't remember the specifics on that. I don't know if that's true, what's true or not. If I recall correctly, the journal was pretty wonky. Although there clearly, I am of the opinion some wonky shit was going on down there. So I don't know
Yeah.
what specifically. I mean,
Hmm.
whether you want to say Hollow Earth was there, whether you want to say aliens were
Right.
there, whether you want to say the Nazis were there. I mean, I'd
Right.
say those all sound crazy, but I mean, I guess if you want to keep it grounded in reality and not go nuts. But yeah, I'm of the opinion at the very least, I wouldn't be. I think. I mean, I guess I don't have anything strong, but I lean towards there probably was some sort of Nazi base or something down there.
Right.
So,
It's what it sounds like. And I
and
mean, when you know
yeah.
enough about like New Schwabenland and like
Mhm.
what was going on like in the Nazi occult, I mean, my God, brother. Like, and when that alone makes me like really consider what beyond the fact that like there's this book that I mean, clearly we know that Prescott Bush had ties to funding both the Allies and the the Nazis, and it's just ridiculous to me that you know that seems to not be in the forefront of people's minds whenever they discuss World War II in the first place. But
Mhm.
I do think that you know they were up to something that was like, and I've heard so many different explanations, like esoteric shit, where they're searching for like, the um oh shit, what was it? It's almost like the Indiana Jones shit. I can't remember. But
Oh, I don't know.
yeah, oh
Anything.
yeah, one of the pieces of the spear that pierced Jesus's side.
Spear of Destiny or whatever, I think
Yeah,
is what
yeah,
it is. Yeah.
something. Yeah, I believe so. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it is, man, it's damn interesting to see like why the hell were Nazis all the way in Antarctica and in these remote locations, like and creating like the small Nazi communities and things of that nature, right? Where they all speak German. And yeah, that which always now reminds me of Colonia Dignidad, right? Which is just absolutely crazy. But anyway, yeah, that story always blew my mind. But I I always intend on going back to it at some point too, because I do think that it's at least would be a fun thing to explore. But anyway, my main point ultimately was just seeing what had happened when when Sam brought this up on Rogan, and the first thing that happens when Jamie pulls up the author is it fucking just every red flag you could throw in the first sentence, right? I mean, just neo-Nazi, anti-Semitic, basically a white supremacist and conspiracy theorist, and just every single thing you could imagine. And the problem is, though, read the book, my friend, because that's not at all who this person was. And when you watch his interviews, it's just clearly that wasn't the case. And so it seems to me like it's just been a major tool of the establishment of the established media for that matter. I mean, you look at what happened just recently with yeah, Eustace Mullins. Yeah, man, they tear his ass apart. But immediately try and throw you off, right? And of course they would. But again, you read the world order and it's just like it's absolutely brilliant. It really sent me down a path to reconstructing what I believed was basically the formation of America and who funded some of these wars. And I already knew that like the major funding and the people holding the purse strings were clearly, it wasn't the official narrative was not explaining what the actual motives were. But
Yeah, I did want to point out, I do think it's wild. That first paragraph. I mean, this is
Mm-hmm.
like, I mean, okay. I mean, don't get me wrong. I guess like some of this, sure, maybe there, but the one that really stuck out to me, a disciple of the poet, whatever, whose best known work is The Secrets of the Federal Reserve, in which he alleged that several high profile bankers had conspired to write the Federal Reserve Act for their own nefarious purposes,
Yeah, there you
and
go.
then induce Congress to enact it into law. The only thing that I think anyone really could provide any sort of pushback whatsoever on is their own nefarious purposes. The rest of that sentence, like,
Right.
I don't see. That's just what happened. Like, that's just what happened.
Exactly.
Like, and even then, the for their own nefarious purpose, it's more of just like a, I mean, I guess you could say opinion. I guess would be rooted in fact, but it's like, I don't know. I mean, I guess you could say maybe you're getting to mind reading there, unless you have actual documentation with them saying for their own nefarious purposes or
Right.
whatever. But even then, you could debate what was it nefarious. I mean, because most people find a way to justify what they're doing, and so in their head, it may not be nefarious.
Right.
But either way, my point is, like, I guess aside from that one little caveat, that's just fact. That's just a fact of what happened. So it's like, I don't even know how anyone can. I mean, I don't know. I mean, was it the Jekyll Island? Isn't that the whole thing?
Yeah.
Or was like they literally kind of got together, talked all over.
Exactly.
And it's, man, I don't remember the specifics of this, but I know it just basically got shoved through and just kind of was like, oh, yep, that happened. So
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And there's
Yeah,
also the
and-
Titanic component with the.
Oh God, dude. The
It
Olympic.
just so happened the
Yeah.
only ones that were like in the fold that would actually push against it seemed to be on the Titanic. Oh,
Yeah.
that's weird.
Yeah, and it was basically orchestrated, and then the one member that would have been in league with, the others who would have orchestrated that alleged sinking of the Titanic, was just backed out like last second, and it turns out they had like a perfectly modeled ship that was exact to
Yep.
the Titanic, called the Olympic.
Mm-hmm.
And there was some insurance scam that they had planned that would basically help them. I can't remember the details now. It's been so long, but I do remember that. Yeah, that it's.
We'll have
there's
to bring
clearly
Toad on for this sometime. He's
That
that
would be
deep into
fun.
Titanic.
Has he really? That's hilarious.
Yeah,
That's
he every
just-
now and then goes on weird. He'll be in the group chat just going on very. Although to be fair, I guess I do the same thing, but it's just a different experience when Toad's doing it, and he finds random shit to really dig into. And that was
awesome.
one. I think maybe a few months ago, he was like, "Oh my god, I'm reeling about the Titanic."
Yeah, it's
'cause,
a trip. I remember
yeah.
when I looked into it a little bit, but
Yeah, I think Clint was being the reasonable one, kind of about the insurance scam. Like, oh, they just switch it. I mean, maybe I might be remembering that wrong, but
that sounds about right.
but it's like, I mean, I don't know. This sounds ridiculous, but I do think by the standards of that time, I mean, what was it? Probably 20s, 30s, something like that. I don't remember when Titanic happened.
Yeah, it was. Shit, I don't remember the exact date now.
Yeah, but I mean, either way, my point is like you could totally, as long as it looks similar, you could totally swap out a ship.
Oh yeah.
Because there's kind of like, oh, how would they not know? Like, I mean, that would be easy. I mean, it's not like they have internet. People are regularly looking at it. I feel like you could probably almost get away with it today. Like, I've gone on cruises before, and like,
Oh yeah.
I don't know, if someone swapped out a cruise ship, how the fuck would I know?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I guess this one was kind of more prolific, I believe. I mean, I don't know if that's like to what extent like it was a famous ship or something. I don't
Right.
know, but either way, yeah. But you brought up Gunderson a little bit ago, and that reminded me. I don't remember if this is something Tanya ever said publicly. Oh, real quick, happy birthday, Tanya, to everyone who's out there. It's her
happy
birthday. It's also
birthday.
the Unabomber's birthday.
Oh
but,
wow, yeah.
Yeah.
Uncle Ted.
Yeah, but you mentioned when I was kind of like, hey, what are the kind of hot topics? You said something about like satanic, not ritual abuse, but like satanic ritual, something
Ritual
like
murder.
ritual murder. You brought that up, and so I
Right.
don't know. Now I will say I don't know
Uh-huh.
if maybe she said something to you, but I don't remember if this is something she said publicly because me and her have talked on the phone a lot. So I'm not gonna say it, but there definitely is. So there's some component there. I'm not saying there's something public, but you mentioned something about wanting to do that for Tanya. Did she say something to you?
No, I just saw her when she tweeted thank you to you
Okay.
earlier, and she
okay.
mentioned me. She was just saying how she liked last week's episode, but then
okay.
she had mentioned I'm pretty sure she was alluding to the McDonald murders at Fort Bragg. And it
Okay.
was like in 1970 at Fort Bragg, I'm pretty sure. I'm almost positive that's what she was alluding to, because she said like the Green Beret murders, I think, and
Yeah.
was kind of in the context of like OJ and like certain like husbands being, kind of like labeled as the killer, and then it basically helped perpetuate a narrative that was entirely false. And that also fell perfectly in line with the Satanic Panic at that time, because 1970, the country's reeling from the Manson murders, and fresh in everyone's minds. That was another way that they kind of convicted him as well, was because there was like a newspaper in the front room or something where like it was in regard to the Manson killings, and there was blood all over it or whatever. But it's just a strange one for sure, because I remember, and again, I'm gonna have to look into it deeper, just so I get like real crucial details. But I do know that like clearly it was like this guy had woken up to like he claims like four like grown men and like a woman, right? And like they're basically were just, it sounded so much like the description of what happened with Sharon Tate, right? And because this woman's pregnant and she's literally massacred in bed, like stabbed 26 times. One of the two daughters, a 5-year-old and a 2-year-old, are killed, and one of the like one of the men is wearing like, he's like a black guy, and he's wearing like green army fatigues with like sergeant stripes, and then there was like a white man with pock marks on his chin and cheeks, if I remember correctly. And there's like this woman who's wearing like a floppy hat and like a blonde wig, and she's like chanting, what the fuck was it? She's like chanting something super dark, like death to pigs or something, but it was very, very similar, right, to exactly what had happened in the Manson murders. So that alone was just strange as hell to me, you know what I mean? And the S was carved into the 5-year-old's body, I believe. And so this woman, Helena, I don't remember how to pronounce her last name, but she later on admitted to Gunderson that she was actually one of the killers that night, right? And that it was an initiation into a satanic cult, right? And then Gunderson, he subsequently tracks this cult.
What's the name of it? Do you know? Do you remember?
No, I haven't gotten a name yet. Like that's what I'm very like. I'm trying to get more of the details, because when she mentioned it earlier, I was like,
real
holy
quick,
shit.
I don't know if this rings a bell, but I don't know if we've talked about this before, but I know one of the things with this is kind of like the tie-in of the smiley face killers or killings, and then also O9A.
That's what I've heard.
Yeah, O9A has
I read about that earlier.
O9A as a part of their ideology has this concept of, I believe it's called culling. And I guess it's kind of esoteric and vague, so you can probably interpret certain ways. But it sounds like they're basically describing essentially a ritual murder, and that's how you get to the next step of the cult. So it's almost like an initiation. And essentially there's no more literature past that phase. So that's kind of like the veil that you can't see past. So like that is the moment to where there's no more literature that we know of. So maybe there's a literature that's passed around other way once you pass this test or whatever. A lot of people, the problem with O9A is they're kind of also in a certain sense kind of a fucking joke. So if you've ever really dug into O9A and really like a lot of the founders and stuff are like do really bizarre shit where you'll find them online talking to themselves on different alts and like trying to make themselves bigger and creating this lore around them. But it's also like, I don't know, their whole deal is deception, and like, so it's like, but it is like, it's weird when you see them doing these odd things and it's so transparent to anyone with the slightest bit of like, What's going on here? Like, and no
Right.
one's paying attention to these person's ramblings. Like, this dude will literally have like the main guy, I forget his name off the top of my head, but he'll literally have conversations themselves within alts, like whole threads, and then he'll later refer to this in like his like forums and stuff, and like, oh, here's a great
Okay.
thing for you to refer to for this, or in reference
Wow.
to blah, blah blah. Like, so it's almost like he's using it as like it's an academic thing of like, oh, look at this great
Right.
conversation I found online or whatever.
My God, man. That's
But yeah,
ridiculous.
no. So my point is, it sounds ridiculous, but it's like, I don't know. I mean, that
Hmm.
that would totally make sense. That would
Exactly.
be like, if you're entering into something like that, if you were having some crazy killer cult, that it'd be like, yeah, it's probably very vague up until that moment, and once you do
Hmm.
it, that's that. And then also, like, if you've looked in the smiley face killings, they're pretty goddamn
Yeah.
efficient, because the whole point is it's like a single methodology, like a single MO, which is very like, person disappears. It always seems to be like where cameras aren't present, so it's almost like there's like a
Hmm.
tech involved, like know-how involved. This person,
That makes so
uh,
much sense.
they
Yeah.
just disappear. They end up in the water usually like a week or weeks later. So they just disappear and then show up in the water. A lot of times they don't find water in the lungs. There's also like minimal. It seems to be usually minimal issues on like. There's minimal like anything other than just like dead. Like,
Yeah.
so a lot of people think one theory I've heard that I like is that it's probably they may use like a stun gun to knock them out or something.
Interesting.
So yeah,
Wow.
and then keep them for a while and do Lord knows what, and then
Hmm.
do some, I guess probably kill them somehow and then dump them in the water. And yeah, it's someone mentioned in the chat, it's all like college age boys, which is another component of this where it's like they're typically college age guys and probably roughly in like the middle class.
Mm.
It's usually white boys that you just said in there, kind of out drinking type thing. So it's usually dudes, and it's usually like your generic. How do I put this? The like what people think of when they think of like the generic good guy. I guess you could say, I don't know, maybe good might be the wrong word for it, but I don't know, like I guess you could say almost like the guy who's like does good in school, is like
Right.
generally kind of attractive, is the one
Right.
who's like maybe a little bit of a jock, like he's kind of like someone who's kind of has his life together, and so that is a component of it too, where they're trying to.
The stereotype kind
Yeah,
of.
there's a certain
Yeah.
stereotype they go after, and it's almost like they're trying to find I don't know if I'm gonna say like a sheep or whatever, but
Mhm.
it's almost like the similar concept to like if you've read like the Old Testament, where it's like comes to like sacrifice, it's like trying to find like a sheep with a little blemish. It's almost like you're
Yeah.
just trying to destroy that which is good,
And
essentially. Yeah.
that fits in perfectly with the doctrine. And that makes a lot of sense why. And now, I've read multiple detectives who they've pinned it down. They claimed that the smiley face killings were affiliated with the Process Church and
Mm.
that they were fulfilling some other sort of
I
ultimate
wouldn't be surprised if
sacrifice.
multiple cults use it, or multiple
That's
groups, because it's
yeah,
like it's such a foolproof MO almost. So
you're
it's
right.
like,
You're right.
yeah.
I'm just wondering because it really does seem like legitimate investigators on the beat that were affiliated with the murders, like investigating the murders. Yeah, yeah. That's great. But I mean that they honestly believe that there was some umbrella directive, some group directing these smaller offshoots, these smaller branches that they deem as cults, and they're fulfilling different aspects of this ultimate sacrifice on behalf of the doctrine, and through it all they will ultimately usher in their desired result. And I think that is truly at least a part of their principles that they actively pursue, and live by. And by the way, it was acid is groovy, kill the pigs that she's
Mhm.
chanting. Now this lady later admits to Gunderson, and I mean, the trials, that legality, and like it's just completely, they did every single thing possible to withhold evidence. It was like they were going to make certain that this man took the rap, right? And that was interesting. And then I listened to Gunderson a little bit further, and I heard him say he basically starts making this Gary Webb connection that Fort Bragg was bringing in bodies and caskets that had bags of drugs in them, man. That's what he said. And that this group that committed these killings for this initiation rite were a part of bringing in the drugs from Fort Bragg. And I was just like, motherfucker, that fits just right. You know, especially when you look at Mark Dutroux will haunt me for the rest of my life. That motherfucker.
Fucked up dude.
Yeah. But the Belgium network, dude, like it just ties in so heavily, so directly to this. It's like some group within NATO. I mean, Michael Aquino was running a part of this group, and he was going and frequenting these Belgian castles, you know, where they were having these elite parties, brutalizing the ex-victims, you know, and
Oh shit! Did I tell you O9A has a Gladio connection? I believe I've told you this before. There's a Gladio connection.
oh
with O9A.
yeah, no, yeah,
Yeah,
I remember.
Sutter. Sutter,
Yeah,
I believe his
dude.
name is like
Yeah.
kind of like one of the main guys who I don't think he's technically the guy who founded it. I believe he was kind of like a guy who came along shortly after or around the same time. I know the
Right.
main guy will a lot of time kind of deflect with like the Fed or evil accusations or whatever and point to that as like, well, that was more like Sutter that was like kind of spreading that around type deal. So I mean, maybe, but either way, is I do find that interesting. There's a Gladio connection, and then it's like, I mean, you've read Program to Kill, and so like the idea of having, like, if you had like, I guess, pseudo government or I guess government hit squads, I mean, I guess like, is it really that crazy? Or hit squads or lone assassins? Is it really that crazy that this would be the like kind of convoluted recruiting method? Like, I don't know, like, because that does like, you know, that's kind of, I mean, whether these people know perfectly or not, but that would kind of tie in perfectly with like the kind of Program to Kill thesis. And it is like, and it's kind of almost in a fucked up way, kind of genius, because it is like, if someone is killed, because the reason why when I was confused and you brought this up is, I'm not going to give specifics because I feel like that's Tanya's storytelling. I can't remember if she said that to me publicly. I'm almost certain she didn't. I think it was a phone call. But it was there's a component with Gunderson and Tanya and Satanic Ritual Murder. But it is kind of like, if that was the case, say there was a prominent death of some person and there was a suspect that maybe there were satanic components involved. Now all of a sudden it's entered kooky world. So like now you're like, what you think is fucking satanic? Like,
Right.
Well, for one, it's also kind of like missing the point because it's like, I mean, like, well, that is interesting. It's kind of like, to some extent, who cares? Someone died, and like we need to find out who did it and take care of it. But so like you're focusing on the wrong thing. But yeah, I do find that interesting. That is like, I mean, that would make sense if you do have these, I don't know, Trenadus, Yikis, Caradoris, all these different, you know, entities, these people who've died. Is it really that crazy that maybe it would be like, yeah, even the ones that are unsolved, that it's like now they have this extra step of like insurance to where some crazy satanic individual or there are satanic components involved. And now it's like, if this part gets out, now you're already, to the eyes of the public, crazy idea of like, well, so-and-so didn't kill themselves, sounds even more crazy when now you're spouting shit like, and now you look at this and this clearly indicates there was a satanic ritual component. You're like, whoa, dude, you sound fucking nuts.
Oh yeah. 100%. And like, it's so strange to me because that's just not who I am. That was never like in my life. I would never take that approach, right? Like, especially just because I wanted to remain credible as long as I could, and I felt like on its face, just like everyone else, you just dismiss it because it's just so. outrageous it feels, you know.
Well, the
But
beauty of what me and you do, though, is that we can cover these things, and I can refer you to my 09A /764 or whatever the
right.
fuck playlist that talks on all this stuff. You've covered a lot of this shit on your show. The stuff
Oh,
we're
yeah,
talking about, I feel like you've probably covered more of this stuff on your show. Although I've covered plenty of it on my show as well.
definitely.
We've done Jonestown series. We did a Finders
Man.
Cult series. I believe we did another satanic ritual type thing, maybe playlist. I forget. But yeah, so like there are those to refer to, and we refer to sources. But it is like, yeah, in your day to day life, it's like, how the fuck do you talk to someone? Or even let's say I went on some podcast with a more buttoned up crowd. Say I went on Timcast and I was to talk about, I don't know, some conspiracy that also has a like, I don't know, like a satanic component to it. It's like, how would I address that? Which, I mean, like, hell, even with OKC, with like the OKC bombing stuff, there is stuff that like, if I'm going to go on a more buttoned up show, like, I'll be honest, I don't lean into the like, this was probably a false flag, guys.
Right, right. I know, right? It is funny,
Yeah.
but I completely agree as far as like I never would go on someone else's show and just kind of like lean that direction without trying to really kind of lay the groundwork as
Yeah,
much as
you can feel people out. I've been on multiple shows where I go
100%,
full on, but
right.
it's like I could tell. Yeah, this dude's was like about it, so whatever.
Definitely,
But
definitely.
generally, it's like, I don't know. Give me like an hour and a half to work to it, or give me another episode. I don't know. Maybe I can get you there. But generally speaking, it's like I'm probably just gonna get you to like, well, that John Doe 2 thing's pretty fishy, right?
Right, right. Exactly. That's
Which,
great.
to be fair, that is like one of the most like bulletproof type or solid angles to take if you're just trying to be like cold hard facts. But there is also a lot of other interesting stuff that once you start digesting it, you're like, this paints a pretty wild picture.
For
So,
sure.
yeah.
And you mentioned the Gladio connection to 09A, and I remember that when Radix came on, I think I was like fresh. I was fresh off of the Dutro episode, if I remember, and I remember that I mentioned the Gladio connection to Dutro, and then she had sent me something, and then I went down this rabbit hole, an additional rabbit hole. It was about the Gladio connection to 09A, and I remember there was this like was it Myatt? What's his name? David Myatt? Is that how you pronounce it? Do you know? You remember?
Myatt, yeah.
Yeah.
Myatt's the 09A guy. Yeah. That's the main one, I
Yeah.
believe. So
Yeah.
that was the name I was looking for earlier. There you go.
That was it. And so basically the theory was circulating online that Myatt was behind like particularly he helped kind of push this satanic panic innuendo, being that, but in reality, Myatt was working for British military intelligence, and part of that psychological warfare operation, which ran from 72 to 74, and allegedly with it, rumored that Myatt founded the 09A in the same year that PSYOP began, which is like, holy shit. And then again, is perfectly timed. Like the timing is just, it couldn't be more perfect for everything that's happening at this moment. Right? Like 74, Patty Hearst, like,
Real quick, I do want to point out with this Wikipedia thing, one key thing, as I mentioned with Maya earlier, which he will literally like do weird shit, like talk to himself in fucking threads and stuff. I'm pretty sure he basically kind of is the source for his like basically his entire bio. So
that theory of, do you think him being involved with British intelligence was like, You
Well, that's
think
the thing.
that's
His
maybe
life
a
is such a
goal?
his life
Right.
is such a conundrum that's like unless you can find like a lot of it is just shit that he was just saying. So like
That seems pretty perfect for a spook to do, though.
yeah,
Right? Like,
exactly. So it's like
yeah.
what's real, what's not. I mean, I definitely some of this is real for sure because I mean we've looked into it like space like 09A stuff. But there is a lot that you're like, I don't know, is it just bullshit? He clearly spouts a lot of bullshit. But yeah, like
Right.
he swears he was what, like the inspiration for like Al Qaeda or something like
Bro.
that. And
Yeah. The dude's wiki is out of control, man.
yeah,
For sure.
yeah,
That is so funny
he's
to me.
something else. Yeah,
Did you
praises.
see
Yeah, go ahead.
did you see which by the way, um CNN, interesting timing for that footage to drop, right? Isn't that footage that I was talking about just recently that he paid 60 grand for from
Wait, which footage?
that CNN ran of Diddy
Oh, Diddy. Okay, I didn't
in
hear
the
you say
hotel
Diddy.
room.
So,
Yeah, sorry,
yeah,
I just
the Cass,
randomly
him
talking about.
beating the shit out of Cassie. Yeah, that
Yeah,
dropped. Yeah,
yeah. For
yeah.
me, I'm just like that's the exact same footage that I described that was in the lawsuit where Diddy bribed that hotel like 60 grand to hold the footage. And so I just thought like, I wonder why, what an interesting timing for CNN to run this footage right now. And like for
Yeah.
me, he's just getting the Ghislaine treatment in a way, it seems like, right? To
Yep.
where it'll be like
It
the
was
perfect.
it's like we were talking on Tower Gang last night about Terrence Howard and how he beat his wife at one point. I don't know if you watched the episode.
I
but
haven't watched it yet,
yeah,
but I saw
but
Owen talking about Terrence and he was
yeah.
killing me, dude.
But we were talking about it, and we were talking about him being his wife, and it was kind of obviously it's a fucked up situation, but he apparently like literally closed fists punched his wife like literally in front of his kids.
Terrence
And
Howard did that?
yeah, and apparently I think the cops
Wow.
were already there or some shit because I guess they literally were like, yeah, we saw it, and like he tried to be like his argument was essentially like, well, she was kind of talking to me strongly, and then his like real contention was like, it wasn't a closed fist, it was an open hand, it was a slap, and it was like, while that is like nuts to do, it's kind of like in a certain fucked up way, it's kind of genius because now you have everyone focused on was it
Wrong
open
thing.
or
Yeah,
was it open or was it closed? And you're like,
exactly.
what the fuck? What a difference does it really make?
Mhm.
But yeah, let's get into Diddy in a second. I do want to swap over to the call-in portion of the show, and we'll kind of talk about Diddy. I do want to let you guys know today's show was brought to you by Nadeau Shave Co. Big Shave has been psyoping the American people for decades with their multi-blade razor scam. You don't need that bullshit. Eliminate razor burn, irritation, and ingrown hairs caused by deep, penetrating multi-blade cartridges. Return to the traditional shave. You don't need expensive bullshit. Nadeau Shave Co. supplies you with single stainless steel blades just like your grandpa used to use. High quality stuff. I know I'm a little bit fuzzy, but I'm probably going to shave here soon and take that sucker down. But I still do edging with it too. But yeah, this is good stuff. One standard issue gives you one traditional safety razor, as you can see in the picture here. That thing's pretty dope. I mean, it's metal, lasts forever pretty much. And a box of 100 stainless steel razor blades. It's all for $75. The shit will last you. It says a year. Let's be real. You can, depending on how frequently you do it, you can make that last probably way longer. And those who shave daily, there's a quarter shave club. You can pay. It's a 25 cents a shave roughly. Go to NWJ to get yourself the traditional safety razor. Keep an eye out for soaps, shave body and hair soaps coming out soon. NWJShaveCo.com. Use code Jose for 10% off your entire order. All right, guys, let's get into the call-in portion of the show. Here we go. This is the number, 941-281-5857. Feel free to call in. We'll shoot the shit with you. I do want to remind you guys, I'm going to stop fucking mentioning this literally every time, but maybe before, you can only talk with me. Austin can hear you, but you can't hear him. So just keep that in mind. Pop on, ask a question, make a statement, whatever. I'll boot you out kind of deal. And we'll kind of talk about it, but also we'll kind of refer to the chat. But for now, I do want to continue our conversation on Diddy, and then we'll start kind of digging into the chat. And I also do want to kind of talk about that Congo coup at some point.
Oh yeah.
Although maybe
Yeah.
we could save that for next year, but next week. Maybe more will come out by then. Because I
I
tried
bet.
looking into that white boy that was involved, and like,
Yeah.
I mean, I couldn't really find much other
Yeah,
than
I
it
was
was, you know,
coming up
kind
a
of,
little empty
yeah,
as well, but
yeah,
I'm really thinking that I saw like just there's not as much coverage on it as I'm used to, including like even antiwar.com. I was surprised. I expected a little bit more on that, but I understand. Like I'm sure there's a lot going on clearly, but I know obviously the ICC charges toward Netanyahu
oh yeah,
and
yeah,
yeah, which you know, as empty as that is, I mean, it's something. You know, I mean,
yeah,
shit. It's hard for me to act like there's no value to it, but it's just at a certain point, it's like what? Well, what's going to change then? I mean, you know what I mean? But
yeah,
it's like, but I understand how that would kind of take precedent in the news as far as right now that
yeah.
coverage
Well,
and then
we
the
also had
helicopter crash.
on that front, we also had I don't know if it was today or if it was yesterday, but it was very recently. It was, I believe, Ireland and two other countries came out and recognized Palestine as a state,
Yeah,
which kind of wild. I mean, I don't know,
it is
maybe it's
crazy.
not. I don't know to what extent that's a regular thing amongst other countries, but I thought that was kind of a
Was
big deal. It
Ireland?
was,
What other country was it?
I don't know, they were definitely like white boy countries. I don't
Yeah,
remember
yeah.
what ones. I want to say like Portugal or something and something else. I
Mm.
don't fucking know. I know Ireland was the one that I, you know, kind of, the only reason it stuck in my head is because Keith Woods was fucking going like, hell yeah, because he's Irish.
Right.
But yeah,
That's cool.
so that's kind of wild, which I will say you know, when it comes to the question of like one state solution, two state solution, I honestly don't give a fuck, like at all. I don't know about
Yeah.
you. I just care about what leads to people not being treated like shit, I guess, essentially.
Right.
What if that entails the, you know, Israel going, just kidding, now we're going to kind of do equal rights, we're not going to restrict land, you know, like we do, we're going to fucking, you know, whatever, you know, change things up a little bit here.
Hmm.
I mean, if they even want to go a step forward and maybe start doing some sort of arbitration and figuring out, you know,
Yeah.
ways to rectify the, you know, clear property right infringements that have occurred over decades and decades and decades. I mean, I know a lot of people act like this is a thing that can't be dealt with, but it's like, I don't know. This is like within 100 years, and like, I mean, I get it. Like, not everyone's going to be able to probably get their, you know, property back or whatever, but like, I don't know. There are a lot of people out there that still have like wills and stuff, and they would be. I don't feel like it would really be that hard. Not wills, but like the what's the word I'm looking for? The deeds. They still have like
Mm.
deeds to like their families' houses and stuff. So, and like, yeah, those houses may not still be there, or they might be occupied by somebody else. But I really think that in that situation, it's incumbent on the government to either return their property to them or something of equivalent value.
Hmm.
And yeah, that might be a process that would take a long time to pursue, and then maybe a little bit more nuance, and like maybe you need some legal experts to explain the process. I know it sounds crazy to people out there. They want this like easy, like one state, two state. I don't give a
Right.
shit if that entails two states, if it entails one state. I don't fucking care. At the end of the day, like something needs to happen, and I mean, I don't know. I mean, maybe this could be a good step forward. Is you know, recognizing Palestine as a state, and maybe other states start doing
You see
that. You know,
Netanyahu, like what he literally said. I was just like, motherfucker.
about
Like,
what?
uh, bringing up, he said, like, comparing, it's like charging George Bush for 9/11 or like, you know, issuing a warrant for George Bush on 9/11 or some shit.
Yeah,
And yeah, like basically comparing it to his own situation with the international courts.
they
And
should
I
have.
was just like, that not a good idea, brother. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like, honestly, it's deserving of the George W. Bush meme. Like,
yeah,
fucking, it's just so crazy. Like, he clearly was involved during 9/11 as well, right? So, like, it could have honestly be a veiled threat at a certain point where it's like, who knows how much dirt that, you know, he's aware of on certain individuals in our political landscape. That's all I'm saying. I mean, I don't necessarily believe that Netanyahu is I believe he's making decisions on behalf of a group of individuals. That's what I believe, that, but just like most leaders,
Oh, I
but
think his wife's probably his handler. Have you ever dug into that rabbit hole?
dude, it seems
Yeah,
like it.
it's weird. It's like she literally owns all his shit, basically.
I'm
Like,
telling you, man.
yeah, and they
Like
have some weird sort
political
of like
marriages.
marriage. They have like a
Yeah.
marriage agreement to where like I forget the specifics of it, but it's weird. It's very bizarre. The requirements of him to his wife
Right.
in that thing. Like not
Mhm.
normal stuff. They'd be like, oh yeah, we'll put that in the prenup. Like,
Right. I know, man.
yeah,
No, it blows my mind, but I couldn't believe that he said that out loud, to be honest. But
yeah,
I also can at the same time. But anyway, but other than that, I just like I have sort of kind of in my own mind given up in a way on the idea of a two-state solution. On not that I wouldn't be open to it.
yeah,
I'm just trying to be realistic, and as far as I don't see the political will. I just don't see
yeah.
it.
I don't
I
know.
see
I
it
mean, but
in the
we're at a
in
weird tipping point though, and I
you're right.
think
You're right. I've
so.
never
That's why these three countries coming out, I'm like kind of like that's kind of wild, and I think we're really at a point where like I think public sentiment isn't, but it's like obviously there's the establishment sentiment is very very much still in the pocket for Israel, but less so than it was,
right.
and also the public sentiment is completely not now. And I mean not completely, obviously there's still a lot of like boomer types out there that's very much fucking deep throating Israel, but I think that's dissipating over time, and I think it's mostly the older generation. I think a lot of younger people are just like left, right, in between, are like, yeah, I don't know why
This
we
is
need to
bullshit.
support them for fucking everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, I kind of want to finish up our thoughts on the Diddy thing real quick. I mean, with that, do you think this is kind of like are you thinking this is a distraction to kind of, is a way to kind of, like, as I was making the point with like the Terrence Howard thing, kind of like now we're focused on open close, and now we're focusing on beating Cassie as opposed to the other
Right.
fucked up shit, or
Yeah.
because for me, I see that and I just think, well, that just makes me believe the other shit more.
That's
You
true.
know,
But
so
I do think there's a kind of a large group of citizens in this country, and especially that kind of are more in the consumption, like they're just over consuming. Many of them are just very much in the vein of this sort of post high school um um you know it's sort of a popularity contest of some kind, where it's mainly you just want to embrace ideas for this false identity that you're trying to kind of like enshroud yourself with, but in reality it's just a mask. And you're most people are a little too yeah, insecure with their own beliefs and principles. And I just think that I think that so many of those people will be so easily distracted with anything like a video such as that, right? Where it's like that alone, I mean, how many people would just right away, they would probably turn it off after the first few seconds, because it would, harm their delicate sensibility to that extent. And I mean, there's a lot of people like that now, even when they're consuming, you know, um, murder porn on TV or whatever the case is. It's like when it comes to like real life situations, not as many people are eager to expose themselves to something like that. So I think like that alone, just seeing Diddy do that to Cassie will serve as a perfect distraction for that group
mm,
of people, for a massive group of people in this country that might even be the majority. I'm not quite sure, to be honest,
yeah,
because how many of those people went and read through the Lil Rod lawsuit?
yeah,
I mean, come on. I mean, how many people read the Cassie lawsuit? That lawsuit alone is like, how is this man still walking around?
yeah,
And he didn't even really take a hit as far as whenever that lawsuit went public at first. I mean, it took a lot to get this to come to light. And honestly, it was his homes being raided. I mean, that was really it. I mean, you could say maybe Cat Williams and stuff, but really that was just kind of like, oh wow, I can't believe they said that. But yeah, but I definitely felt like it was very convenient timing, and he must be playing ball to a certain extent behind the scenes, because I just don't see how one, the timing of the footage being released to the public, and two, their coverage of it was just, it was entirely about like, wow, there's basically just a domestic dispute that Diddy was involved with. And then did you see that they had this guy on? I laughed so hard, man. Cameron or whatever, the rapper who just went on this segment, and he like uh the headline says, drinks sexual stimulant, then tells CNN anchor, I'm gonna go get some cheeks, which is basically what happened, bro. And if you watch the video, it's Cameron like pissed off, like why you got, like, he's like thinking that this lady is trying to make him seem like he knows more about Diddy because he was like in that world and knew him and stuff like this. And he's like getting upset because he's like, well, no, man. He's like, I don't fuck with Diddy like that. He's like, it's like, it was just very funny the way that he was reacting. And for me, it was like, one, is CNN just like, you know, like they've given up to this extent to where they're just running like this, you know, this absolutely ridiculous sensationalist like clickbait stuff now to try and like remain relevant, or you know, like, is this just actually peak journalism in 2024, right? But you should really watch that because it is funny as hell and it's not even long at all. But
I'll have to check it out. If you find it, send it to me.
I will. Send it to you.
I think you might have a point, and that this is almost like I guess you could say like a limited hangout of sorts, at least in a public perception way of kind of like, oh, give them a little bit of something. Because like sitting here trying to act like you're squeaky clean with all these allegations and giving up nothing when there are super sinister allegations in you know, tied in with all of these, it's easier just kind of go for the lighter one, which is domestic abuse, and release that. I think what we need right now is I've said, I know people think I've been a little bit like obsessed with this, and I think what we need now is another fucking Kendrick diss. That's what we need. Because I'm telling you, I do think, I know a lot of people are like, oh, this Drake thing's a distraction. I'm like, but no, if you understand the Diddy case and the stuff that goes on in these circles, and you know what, I could be wrong. There could be no connection whatsoever, but it feels like from a lot of lyrics, a lot of the hints that Kendrick was dropping, that he was heavily implying some crazy shit's going on.
Oh, yeah.
And it just seems to make sense that it would in some form or fashion be tied into this. So it sounds like it's another thread just kind of hanging there, waiting to be tugged on by someone like hard. So that's what I was kind of getting at last episode, like, hey, some intrepid reporters start digging into the specifics and all that stuff, maybe start uncovering some of this, because I don't think any of the establishments, you know, media is going to do that for sure. And there's this thread, I think, just sitting there waiting, and it's like, yeah, this Diddy one may have, I guess, sort of in a certain sense be somewhat wrapped, but it's like, hey, pull at it from a different angle, you know, like you pull it there, and it's like, so I think there might be some to it, and I think that might actually backfire. If say something like that happened, and now Diddy also has this video that came out, now you have another thread pulling at it, and he's now has an even worse reputation that he's already kind of copped up to some extent. And now you have it being pulled at by a different thread. I don't know. I think there might be something here. Let's get into the chat. I just mentioned limited hangout. Netflix is a limited hangout. James Corbett has a real deets in the Octopus case. I just want to bring this up as kind of like I don't think limited hangouts are necessarily bad. I mean, I guess it depends on the situation, what you're talking about. But say, for example, like the Octopus one, or another good example is the recent OKC bombing documentary that dropped. I forget whether it was at. It was on HBO Max, I think, or something. It was like Road to April 19th or something like that. Or I forget the title of it. But that one very clearly was like pretty much, I mean, whether it may have been, whether intentional or not, was essentially a limited hangout. But I mean, if you watch it, you can tell there's very much, it's very kind of, in some senses, in the vein of Jeffrey Toobin's thesis, sort of, and kind of like ties in like January 6th and conservatives and kind of like, oh, this could happen again, kind of vaguely. But there's a lot of big shit that got dropped in there. They referred like, They kind of dug into a lot into the John Doe 2 stuff. They what else? God, I just had brain fart. There's another. Oh yeah, they kind of dropped some Roger Moore stuff that was pretty like, whoa, they went there. I mean, obviously they didn't completely spell it out as we would have liked. But that documentary was a huge advancement in the narrative. I mean, don't get me wrong; it's a huge advancement, while also kind of sticking their foot in the mud to kind of be like to have their place of like, we're staying here and we're going to shift the narrative a little bit to kind of be like, yeah, but you guys, really the story is you guys are bad. But it's like, I don't know. I think anyone with any quality that watches that would, I mean, yeah, don't get me wrong. The lemmings out there will take that, eat it up, miss the important stuff, and kind of focus on the overall narrative that's kind of sort of being pushed there. But anyone with any sort of, critical thinking will look at that and be like, what the fuck is going on here?
Right.
And those are the people I kind of really care about. I honestly just kind of don't really give two shits too much about the lemmings. I think to some extent the lemmings follow. So I think it's on the critical thinkers of the world to become the leaders. That way they can be followed by the lemmings to some extent, and also other critical thinkers. So I think that's what it comes down to. So to some extent, I think you need to disregard the lemmings. There's not a whole lot you can do about it. Just kind of have a presence about you, and then you'll kind of acquire your own lemmings over time. But yeah, I don't know. I know Octopus Case is more kind of your sphere, so I don't know if you have any thoughts on that. Because I think we talked about it and you kind of agreed that was a limited hangup, but you were of the same mind, and it's not necessarily a bad thing. It was Netflix, like for Netflix being Netflix, that's pretty like holy shit. It was kind of big stuff.
Right.
So
Right. Yeah. I definitely felt like it was a limited hangout, but it's like to shed light on, like, clearly I think the most important thread in Inslaw is really what was going on with the Maxwells, what was going on with Robert Maxwell and his daughters that were heavily involved in Silicon Valley in the tech industry, and I think that, and legitimately, like, the infancy of the tech industry, right? And I think that people have to realize those deep connections that existed that legitimately tie in Epstein. And Epstein was I mean, helping sell and this bug software that with a back door with Ghislaine. I mean, they're literally doing that on behalf of Robert Maxwell, and it's like crazy to me that that couldn't make it in the Netflix series. Like,
did you know sorry, I don't mean to cut you off, but
no,
did you
you're
know Maxwell was part of a group? I forget the name of it, but it was literally something like almost comic bookish of like evil supervillains group. Like he literally had I forget. I mean, I'm kind of at that point in Whitney Webb's book right now.
You talking the Mega Group?
No, he was in a group that was literally called something like I want to say villains, like,
oh god,
like, but it was like literally like called like organization of criminals or something like that.
Really?
And it was like kind of like I forget. I'll have to look at it because I mean I'm sort of talking about stuff I literally just covered, because I'm like. I just finished, like a week or so ago, like literally like the day before we had Nick Bryan on. I finished his book, and then I returned back to Nation Under Blackmail with Whitney Webb, and I'm kind of at that point where they're going to that. There is so much shit in that fucking book, and God. You realize how much Wexner,
yeah,
Wexner or Lexner,
Lex Wexner. Wait, Les Wexner. That's it. Yeah, I get it. And now I'm fucked up. Yeah.
And then I do the exact same between thing. Those two, like you look at all their connections and what's going on, you're like, dude, what the fuck?
My God.
Yeah.
Peter Nygaard is just as tied in. Who's the guy that ran Victoria's Secret? Jean-Luc Brunel.
Was Wexner, I think, had Victoria's Secret, wasn't it? Or maybe.
Well, I think Jean-Luc Brunel was the guy, but they're all heavily tied in together. I know that much. And it wasn't Wexner's the one who gave Epstein the upstate New York property? Wasn't that it for like
he had power of attorney over Wexner.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Which is insane.
But he gave it to him for like a cent or like $1 or some shit.
Wild.
Was what he did. Yeah. And people who were close to Wexner, some people, I remember reading that someone said that they were like, it made no sense why he would give this man so much power over him and how he kind of swooped into his life so quickly and took over so much control over him. And so to me, I mean, that clearly, that the implication there is blackmail to some degree, at the very least. I mean, who knows? Maybe they had a relationship. I'm seeing that
Well, I
so
mean,
often
there's a
now.
lot that's hinted at that Exner was Intel associated with Intel to some degree or another. So,
Right.
I mean, there's a lot of people who thought that. So I wouldn't. So I mean, I guess you could take the angle that Epstein got him somehow, but I think I'm of the opinion after that used to be my thought, but after I'm almost done with I'm probably like a few hours away from being done with Whitney Webb's book, but after that I'm more of the opinion that it's the other way around.
You really think
Or
that?
that's how it sounds to me from the what's being
So you
spelled out there.
maybe that was a limited hangout in itself, that narrative that this poor old man is being
Yep.
taken advantage of, which to me, that's how the narrative felt to me, that it
Yep.
was that part didn't feel right. Some old man's getting taken advantage of by Epstein.
Yeah.
To that extent, that didn't make any sense, right?
No.
But that
It
honestly,
sounds
that
more
makes
like
a lot
it's
more
a
sense.
guy he took under his wing and kind of like, all right.
Dude.
And that's a genius. That honestly, the power of attorney thing, when I
Yeah.
was like thinking about it, I'm like, that's pretty fucking genius. Because it's
It
such
really is.
it is like there are so many things he probably can do in his name that now there's plausible deniability of you don't know who did what. So it's like, I mean, and also the fact that, the connections that he has, it opens up a lot of doors for him to be able to do certain things. So yeah. All right. Another chat. Nicholas Lee said, I can believe it was weather, but I find the National Geographic photography of the stretcher carried on the hill pretty sus. I didn't see that. So I don't know if you want to tell us more about that. I mean, I don't know if does that ring a bell to you? I didn't really
I
look at
didn't
the
see it either,
photos, so I don't
actually.
know what he means by the stretcher carried on the hill. I don't know if maybe there was something weird going on the body or something. I know I saw some photo of that fucking Matt Wallace fuck on Twitter. He always does that shit where he'll be like, "What do you see in this photo?" And it
Oh
was a photo
god.
of the crash, and I was just like, I don't know.
Helicopter crash?
Yeah, he does that all the time though. He'll literally post like a Taylor Swift photo and be like, "What do you see in this photo?" And you're like, nothing at all.
That's hilarious.
You're like, what are you trying to get me? What schizo
Yeah.
fucking trail are you trying to put me down? Because I'm
For
not
real.
feeling it. I don't know what you're talking about, and I'm pretty goddamn schizo. That one got me for a minute. I paused and like was looking. I'm like, what are you trying to say? Like,
Right.
like, what am
Oh,
I missing?
dude.
It just looks like a crashed helicopter. I don't fucking
Right.
know. I don't know. Are you insinuating it was a fucking blown up? I mean, I don't
Right.
know. Yeah,
That's so funny.
but yeah, I don't
Man,
know.
yeah, I just like I honestly think that usually we get some, profound reporting from on the ground journalists at the time that will trickle out over the next couple of weeks. That's kind of what I think is going to occur with, especially we're going to get a lot on that coup. I guarantee you that much, because it functions just like the rest, just like what happened in Haiti, just like what happened, and
The
so
Congo one.
yeah.
Yeah, I guess to give a quick rundown for people so they know what we're talking about. There was I mean, I'm going to give you very, very paraphrase. There was an attempted coup in the Congo. I don't know what's the exact country. I call it the Congo. I don't fucking know. But either way, there was an attempted coup. I forget the name of the guy, Malanga, I think, and then I think his son was Christian Malanga, or maybe the main guy was Christian. I forget. Because him and his son, I don't know if they were U.S. citizens or they used to live in the U.S. I believe they lived in the U.S. like over a decade ago, came over the Congo, and they essentially tried to, I don't know, get some sort of militia, or I forget the specifics on it, but essentially tried to take out a bunch of the main leaders, and I think even issued a threat to like the main president or whatever they call their leader over there, and essentially got squashed. But the weird thing is there were a lot of fucking white dudes that you would
Right.
see in the and it was weird too. And you're looking at the thread. I don't know if it's true or not because I didn't watch all the videos, but they did say in one of the thread that I shared to you guys that it was like the guy in the thread pointed out that it was odd that all the white guys, because you see all these people here, but I guess apparently in a lot of the videos you would see white people kind of in the back, obviously wearing like kind of like balaclavas or whatever the fuck, and like but then they would always kind of seem to like avoid the camera type deal. So I'm like, what's up with that? And then there was a main guy, was it Ben? Very Jewy name. I don't know. Yeah, and
Hold
he
on, I have it somewhere.
yeah, and he fucking he was, I guess, one of the main guys helping
Benjamin
out him.
Rubin.
Yeah, he was one of the main guys helping the Malanga guy. And apparently, I have not been able to find anything that really corroborates it, but this has been in multiple articles. This guy, I believe, was a U.S. citizen. I found somewhere they said he was a American. By the way, that's not actually the white guy. That's actually a different white guy. The main white guy that we're talking about. The reason why they share that video, and a lot of people are getting confused. The black guy is the son of the main dude. So that's why people got confused, and a lot of people were thinking that white guy was a white guy we're talking about. No, there's another photo of the white guy that I'm talking about where his face is all fucked up, but he clearly got the shit kicked out of him by in questioning. Yeah, no, that guy was they called him a cannabis entrepreneur, which I don't know. I mean, maybe he is, but it also seems like a really easy cover. But he fucking yeah. Apparently there were people who insinuated he had ties to Israel and the U.S. I mean, obviously he has ties to the U.S. because he's from the U.S. But it's like, what's going on here? I don't know. Why did this guy decide to be like? I mean, what a weird move to be like, yeah, I'm a fucking highfalutin cannabis entrepreneur or whatever. And you know what? Let's just for funsies go fucking overthrow the Congo. Like, what the fuck is going on here? Very, very bizarre. So I think there'll be more that come out there. We weren't able to find a ton. Me and you, I don't know.
I was looking for, I forgot. Man, I'm trying to find where it was that I had found something earlier that was like this black American kid it seemed like he was like working on behalf of some information government op where he was clearly, politically outspoken for Trump during the, I can't remember if it was during the election or when it was, but he seemed almost like a political operative, just like almost a character to be used in that way. And then he was with that white kid you're talking about. He was one of the guys who was like beat to shit and like standing there. I think he had like a dad that went with him and actually died in this attempted coup. And so anyway, I just found it crazy because this guy was clearly labeling and himself as a black Trump supporter, who then was going
you're talking about Malanga, the main guy, and his son was this guy. Okay, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, now he is being labeled as this Trump supporter, right? That's who you were talking about?
Yeah, and that's like the main guy, the one who like kind of headed this all up, yeah.
Right.
Or at least the face of it, at least.
Clearly, I think that he's obviously being labeled the face of it, in my opinion, because it doesn't seem like he really is some like advanced operator of any kind, right? He's clearly serving a purpose, but to what degree was he like a legitimate, like honest believer in the things that he was claiming while he was, like that part? I'm skeptical of all of this.
How far did you dig into this? Because one thing I found interesting, one component that like if you do dig into it or other people do, one of the articles I was reading is apparently, preceding this, and it seems to be like this may have been kind of like what led up to it. There were legitimate armed attacks against Chinese, I want to say like mines of some sort, by I believe it was American companies is what the claims were.
That's so it's strange like, because I heard there's a huge connection to Israel and the diamond trade through the Congo. This is something that I heard from. I read a report from T-Lab, from The Last American Vagabond, I think, and it was like legitimately saying that there's like real credible connections to like something to do with the diamond mines in the Congo and the Israeli government. So I'm kind of interested to tug on that a little farther as well, because I'm thinking that clearly none of these things happened without some layered political agenda, and that's exactly what the president of Belarus said when they tried to coup him after he refused the IMF funding and to implement restrictions and COVID lockdowns. I mean, he literally, what happened right after he says no, and he makes it public that the IMF and the World Bank tried to just threaten and bribe him, or bribed him and then threatened him when he didn't accept it. And then all of a sudden, it looks like there's a Western-backed coup in Belarus. I mean, it's like, and he's like having to all of a sudden rely on Putin now. And it was, the timing of it was perfect. It's the border state of Ukraine. I mean, a tale as old as time, as we say, right? Like, how many times can we see the same playbook and expect that the culprit, right, or the underlying motive is any different than it has been in the past? I mean, clearly it's going to be politically motivated, and clearly it's going to be backed by the West, because that seems to be the case. And so in my perspective, they're trying to draw Iran into this war. And, how else are they going to achieve their ultimate ends without causing some ratcheting up this tension? I mean, it's the only way, right? You want to label every Palestinian, every member of Hamas as being backed by Iran. Okay. I mean, how many people buy that narrative? How many people believe that story? I mean, I have family members that believe that story. It goes, it's just, you have the foreign minister dying in the helicopter crash. You have the coup being arranged. You have the ICC charges against Netanyahu. Too many things at play here. This is all I'm saying, right? That seem to all lean a certain direction, and call it what you want. But, it's clearly war crimes, and launching a violent coup d'etat through, I don't care what it is, utilizing private networks of organizations and individuals that, are on the payroll.
Yeah.
It's still on behalf of the state. And so there's no getting around that. Yeah. But so the coup d'etat shows all the hallmarks, right?
Nicholas Lee said, Jose, ask your wife's family about the bird diary. A lot of people think some grifter forges published journals about Hollow Earth, prehistoric beasts, and steam vents during high jump. Yeah, this is what I was talking about earlier with the diary. A lot of people think it's a forgery because, as you mentioned, Hollow Earth, prehistoric beasts, and steam vents.
How dare
you? I mean, I will say Hollow Earth is a theory.
I like that theory.
Yeah, I like that theory. It's appealing to me. I mean, I'm not necessarily like sold one way or the other. It makes sense to me. I mean, I don't. The people think Hollow Earth and they think it literally is like hollow entirely inside. Right, but I think between extensive cavern systems, maybe thinking that it goes even further than you think. I don't know. I've kind of gone down that rabbit hole a few times, and I don't know. I think maybe there might be something to it.
What's the name of that cavern that has like its own atmosphere and shit? Like, I can't remember. It's so like, I forget, but I read something about it, and it's mind boggling, the depth of some of these cavernous systems like that. It is absolutely, like, to me, of course, there have been ground dwelling societies throughout the course of history. Are you kidding me? Like, we know of them, but the ones that we know of, I mean, I'm just saying that to me, it's not really, some fantastical thing. There's still, I mean, how many times do people say this? But there are still like some Aborigines that don't know about fucking helicopters, and then their minds are blown, right? Like whenever they're passed over or something. But no, it's just like there's so much that we don't know, and there's been much more that's been, I would say, kind of kept from us. But I don't think that at least suggesting that there could be some credibility to at least some of the details within the Hollow Earth theory. Like, I mean, I'm open to it. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, I'm perfectly open to it. I mean, a lot of people think like when it comes to aliens and stuff, it's like, well, they're not really aliens. Maybe they're here. And I don't know, maybe. I mean, I don't have a strong opinion either way. I think it's perfectly plausible. Why the fuck not? It makes sense to me that, I mean, would it really be that crazy? I mean, a lot of people are like, how the fuck would entities live under the earth? But it's like, as you mentioned, there are areas of their own atmospheres. I mean, you look at like, I mean, hell, look at like we have extremophiles on the Earth, like organisms that live like at the super depths and like and literally survive off of like steam vents and stuff. So is it really that crazy that there would be food, light sources, vegetation, form like oxygen coming through the vegetation at deeper ways through other means other than just straight sunlight? Because I mean, we were sold this myth in science class that like
Right.
literally the sun is like responsible for like everything, and like I guess in a certain sense you can make the case it could by extension. But we do have, like as I mentioned, there are literally animals that live at like the depths of the sea to where no sunlight reaches them, and they literally have found methods of surviving off of heat vents. Because I think once there was like plants that like somehow maybe not necessarily plants, but something in that vein that essentially kind of perform a similar function, but by kind of converting chemically, steam vents they're coming off and stuff like that. So, I mean, I don't know. I do have here most of the lost tech around the world was destroyed in the Great Cataclysm, and Antarctica was preserved. I don't know about that particularly, but that does make me think
Well, that's
about
kind of Graham Hancock, right?
Yeah,
Like
maybe,
fingerprints
yeah.
of the gods sort of approach.
Yeah, but that makes me think of one theory I do like is that the Nazis didn't really lose, because there
Well,
is
I
a
don't
lot
think
of
that's a theory now.
yeah, but
Holy shit.
I mean, you look at things like Operation Paperclip, and then like what happened to a lot of the big Nazis after the fact, and then also you look into the what made me think about the lost tech part of that question is there's a big like a rabbit hole when it comes to technology, and the Germans it seems like they were kind of ahead of us at that time.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
And then, we end up getting the nuke, but it seems like they were quite a bit ahead of us. So there is this theory that they either had a nuke or something equivalent or more so, impressive. And for whatever, I forget the specifics. Robert Sepper has a video where he kind of breaks it down. And he goes into that. And the idea being that essentially there was kind of some sort of standstill between the world powers once they reached that, and some sort of agreement came across to where they're like, and this is where Antarctica comes into play, where like you guys can go here, we'll let you,
Right.
but like as part of the deal, some of their big people were kind of able to come over into our entity, essentially infiltrating us. And
We gotta
while
get Sam on, damn it. This
while
is
they
right up
also
his
have
alley.
their own other little area in like Antarctica, which you
Right.
can go in even deeper into that. Say they were, when it comes to like the tech or whatever, did they discover that on their own? Because they were big into like esoteric stuff. I mean, you have what, like
Oh, yeah.
Cthulhu Society and like other shit that were like literally trying to contact like other entities and stuff like that.
Rudolph Hess. He's
Yeah.
having like a battle with like occult symbolism with Aleister Crowley
Yeah.
and shit. Dude,
Yeah.
crazy
So
story.
it's like, I don't know. Were they talking to entities of some sort? Maybe people living in Hollow Earth? Were the entities in Antarctica? I don't fucking know. But yeah, I do find that one interesting because it's kind of like,
Yeah.
if you do look at their technological, prowess at the time, it is kind of weird that we kind of jumped ahead of them, got the nuke, boom, boom. And
I don't
now we're
remember
the
if it
winners.
was right. I don't remember if it was Hess or if it was another. It was either Hess or another SS member, and that same castle. I believe it was the exact same castle in Belgium, actually. That I can't remember which castle it was, but I used to remember the name. I have it noted somewhere, and but they believed that, and they kind of had it outfitted in the dungeon to where it was like they believed it would be like the capital for the new world when the Nazis reigned supreme. This was the narrative, and they were holding like black masses and rituals in the basement, right? And they had it completely like it was like specifically orchestrated for these black magic rituals, and they had these runes and that's the reason the swastika was chosen. Was they believe deeply in these symbolic runes holding ancient magic. I mean, truly, right? And I mean, I'm talking the majority of the members of the SS had these beliefs. And so, yeah, that's worth looking into.
Yeah,
And
it's a
I'm
fun
just
one.
saying, yeah, that those castles are the same ones that were and I believe that castle specifically that I'm mentioning is the one that was frequented by Michael Aquino later on and in the Belgium network and all of this. So, yeah, Something is going on there.
Yeah, Cody said, by the way, Cody, our buddy here, him and his wife just got preggers. So
I
congrats.
saw that.
Little boy.
Congratulations, buddy.
Yeah, J.P. Morgan buying the 25 biggest newspaper companies, getting us into World War I, then afterwards making bank on Germany's giant war debt is wild. On top of the Titanic and the Fed messed up guy. I mean, then on top of that, too, I don't know the specifics, but I know there's a lot of people who kind of point to similar type things when it comes to World War II, which does kind of tie into that kind of theory that I was talking about before, where it's kind of like it almost seems like the financiers were playing games here. So, I don't know. Yeah. So,
yeah, I think the tides of war have turned, or whatever the hell the quote was that Hitler had. I think it holds a much deeper meaning than what people interpret it to mean. Yeah, honestly, because I mean, he was like, who knows? Maybe he was the bastard son of a Rothschild, you know? Who knows, right? That's all I'm saying, is that he clearly served a purpose, right? And you know, there's a book that claims that the Zionists were completely in at least certain group of elite Zionists were entirely in league with the Nazi Reich, and that they wanted a pretext.
The Stern Gang was trying to, I believe, get into cahoots with them.
Yeah,
it was like that's a big thing people point to. I don't know if it was a letter or what, because I know there's some sort of thing there. All right, I got a call coming in. I don't know if you want to vamp for a minute while I set that up.
Cool. Yeah, I just I think it's insane that NATO has such deep ties to. Well, I guess I shouldn't be so surprised, because Gladio, and of course, if you're talking an international network, then of course it's going to be tied to NATO and to some extent or another. But I just find it incredible how often NATO seems to come up in these stories, tying these different human trafficking networks, child abuse networks, all of this, and more than that, the program to kill idea, which is deeply corroborated by, like, for example, in Program to Kill with Dave McGowan. I mean, I believe there's even a whole portion about NATO specifically being involved with Henry Lee Lucas to a certain extent. And at the very least, he kind of introduces that idea, if I remember correctly. But I know that I noted something down that it just fits perfectly into that vein, which is a U.S. Navy psychologist who claims that the Office of Naval Intelligence. Are we good?
Oh, my bad. I forgot to mute him, and I brought him on. That's why you heard him.
I heard myself, I think. That's
yeah. All right. You're on Already Dead with Jose and Austin. Call her. Go ahead and let us know what you got to say here, homie. Appreciate it.
Can't hear him now.
About Richard Grove and
hey, real quick, you want to repeat that? I'm retarded, and I accidentally didn't have you up on the screen, but they can hear you now. Go ahead.
Oh, okay, right on. So yeah, just love your guys' show once again. Last time I called in, I was mentioning Richard Grove and Grand Theft World, but now that you guys are talking about like the Schwarz Sun and the Black Sun cult that the Nazis were into, it just reminded me that of another content creator. I'm sure you guys know about Mark Passio.
Yeah, I'm vaguely aware of him. I've checked out some of his stuff. I know it's big things like Satanism, although I don't know. I've only watched like one or two videos, and I don't know. Maybe I didn't dig in enough, but either way, go ahead.
Yeah, so he's a wealth of knowledge when it comes to occultism in general. Like you're absolutely correct. He was a priest in the Church of Satan who later, turned around and tried to not go in that direction. But anyways, one of his most recent things that he came out with was a presentation called Two Masks, Same Face: The Dark Occult Origins of Nazism and Communism. And unfortunately, he hasn't released it to the public. You can get it at his website, but he hasn't released it. But I ordered 2 copies of it, and I'm waiting for it in the mail.
Hell yeah. You're muted, Jose.
Oh, I'm retarded. I'm muted. He can hear me though. But I keep fucking up. But yeah. I mean, is there like any question there, or you just let us know about it, or did I miss the question
Well,
because I'm an idiot?
so I guess just the gist of it, not even hearing the presentation or not even knowing about it, he's talked about it before, where he proclaims that like the basis of both communism and Nazism is rooted in the same like dark occult origins. So I just wanted to throw that out there.
Okay. All right. Cool. Well, I appreciate it. You have any other thoughts? Me and Austin will talk about this for a second here, I guess. But you have any other thoughts before we let you go?
Nope. Just thank you guys, and I love your show.
All right. Appreciate it, man.
Thanks,
Calling
buddy.
again. We'll see you.
All right.
All right. Bye. Yeah, I don't know if you have any thoughts on that. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I guess you could probably play word games to make that case.
Yeah.
I could
I mean,
probably
they were
do that.
socialists, right?
Yeah.
Basically communism.
I mean, I would say that is kind of like, to the idea we were talking about earlier with like 09A and stuff. And like,
Right.
it's kind of like an inversion. A lot of these satanic stuff is like an inversion of morality or reality or whatever. So it's like socialism, communism, if you do have a proper grip on how the world works or should work and or economics, it is kind of an inversion of that. So, I mean, it makes sense that would have I mean, I don't know. I feel like it's a strong claim to say it's like the basis. But
No,
like,
I know,
I mean,
like, especially
without
when
playing word tricks, like, or word games
Right.
with it. I mean, I guess you could, from a certain context, you could make that, I guess, or a certain. There's a way you could say that, I think, but I don't know.
Yeah, I could see where, I mean, maybe it's more of like the occult aspect is almost the baked in disingenuous aspect of the philosophy. Like that I 100% could see, because that does fit perfectly in with the inverted tape, the inverted world that we're discussing, where what's the best way to convince, right? Like the largest group of people, that's possible. But beyond that, what if you could philosophically convert people subconsciously, right? What if you could get them to adhere to these philosophical principles, whether they have outlined them deeply or not? They accept some sort of vague notion of the philosophy on its face, and then they live by that, which leads to a lot of hypocrisy. But I just mean that it could very well be that we've been deceived by many different philosophies that have been, almost like the result and consequence of that doctrine, of that satanic belief system in the occult, of the inverted world, where it's just another way to manipulate the masses, another vehicle and tool, right, for the ultimate end result, which is just, to have you believing that you're believing in God, but in reality you're believing in the devil. Like, that's kind of, to simplify it, I know that's an oversimplification, but it's basically, you think you've subscribed and you're living your life on these principles that are so pure, that are so moral and ethical, but in reality, right? You've been entirely misled into being evil, right?
Yeah.
You can have good intentions and inevitably facilitate evil, man. I see beautiful people, unfortunately, do that on a daily basis. And, I'm not blaming them, because, I mean, at a certain extent, they have blame that they must be, hold themselves accountable for, at the very least. But I'm just saying, like, that almost in its essence fits the doctrine, right? Just the manipulation and deception of it all.
Didn't Marx have like a fucking some financier, and like he basically didn't do shit else, essentially? I mean, I was kind of thinking of it from like a spook angle of like, well, I don't know, maybe this was funded by
exactly,
maybe this was created. All right, Tate killings. This is from the Gray Pilled podcast.
He's
Tate
cool.
killings was he's a cool guy. Definitely a ritual set up by Polanski. He said he was conveniently out of town. I guess this was before he raped that 13-year-old in Jack Nicholson's house. So yeah, I mean, I totally forgot about the 13-year-old rape thing. So it's like, but I did. When I first saw that chat, the Tate killing, the first one he put up, I was immediately thought like, yeah, this dude, like if you even if you just read like something like Chaos, they go into like Polanski's inclinations and stuff he was doing, and
well,
it's
you know,
like,
the LAPD members of the LAPD say they fucking saw those tapes that were in the attic
the
at
tapes. That's what I was getting
Lance.
at.
Yeah, brother, and they say that she was brutalized in those tapes. Yeah, and so. I don't know. To me, it seems like it was a ritual sacrifice or something. And his connection to Rosemary's Baby alone is so creepy when it comes to that. And then to have, like I said, that those McDonald murders at Fort Bragg happened so soon after, and to be, I mean, who talks about that? And it has it perfect as far as the similarities in comparison to the Manson murders. I mean, it's creepy as hell what was actually going on. And then the Jimmy Shaver case that we've mentioned before. I mean, all of this is happening very close. Presidio, you know, how many times can we point to this? Even the Franklin, there was some connection to some military connection to a church that was nearby that was involved in the network. And it's just like every single one of them have connections to a military base, right? So a military base, or like I was saying before you took the call, is NATO being so heavily involved with the international aspect of all of this, you know. And so, yeah, I think it's important to recognize the patterns that are clearly, in my opinion, we should prioritize above all. I mean, to have to have such a system that's structured in such a way, right? Where not only is it, you know, being covered up, right, by the members in authority, individuals within authority that have the ability, just like how many cases can we point to where they replace the judge, they replace the prosecutor, whatever they have to do, they infiltrate the jury, they have a playbook for that as well. That's what the False Memory Syndrome Foundation was, right?
I'm doing an episode on that tomorrow, by the way.
Are you really? Awesome, dude.
Yep.
That'll be great.
Jacob from Rise to Liberty is coming on the show. He put out a thread the other day that broke it down pretty well. I was like, oh, that'll be a good template to use for an episode. But yeah, I have City Breakdancer Man. He said, great show, guys. I joined a bit late, but I want to ask if you had a book recommendation on PatCon. I've already read Aberration of Heartland. I'm not aware of any books that really go into PatCon, especially because it's kind of like more newer revelations. I guess newer-ish, like decade or two. I don't think there's been a whole lot of stuff. I would recommend just digging into Jesse Trentadue because he's like kind of the source for a lot of that stuff that's come out. And then maybe I would recommend, digging into like Ken Silva's work. Like you can go to Headline USA and probably just go into the top right-hand corner of the search bar and type in like PatCon or just Ken Silva or something and just dig through his work. He's done a lot of good stuff on that. So if you're trying to find a little bit more easy way to dig into it, that might be easier to go the Ken Silva route as opposed to actually looking to primary documents with Trentadue or something. Although I think he's done a few presentations where he talks about it a little bit, so you might be luck up there. I
know the first time I ever heard about it was Jesse, right? And and I'm pretty sure it was on anti-war radio or something, and KPF KLA or something with Scott, right? And I was like, who the fuck is this guy, dude? And I just immediately wrote his name down, and then that led me down the path to righteousness, my friend. No, but honestly, it was like he was the ultimate source when it came to PatCon for me. And then later on down, I mean, clearly Ken is great, and he's one of the best doing it right now, in my opinion. And the Fed Files is phenomenal, but PatCon is really the brainchild almost of Jesse's work, right? Of just exposing those assholes that killed his brother, man. But I think Scott has really done a great job over the years, giving Jesse that platform. I mean, that's the first time I ever heard about.
Yeah.
I mean, all
Oh,
of that.
he was supposed to come on my show a long time ago, but he's still held up in court and still under the gag order. For some reason we were under the impression he was going to be out of it later. So that's why he hasn't done really any media stuff for a long time now. He's been on a gag order under his. I mean, he recently did some new court stuff. Kind of filed the FOIA suit. Because he had already, I think, like 8 years ago, applied for FOIAs and never got any response. So now he's filing suit.
Didn't like DOJ sue him? Didn't they?
I
Pretty
wouldn't be
sure
surprised
that
if they did at
I'm
some point.
pretty sure, dude. Like
he's been doing this for like over 20 years, so it's like he's got. It's hard to keep track of all his court cases, but the big one with the PatCon one, and this ties into the gag order, is what I always want to say I always want to say Dave Matthews, but it's John Matthews, who was the PatCon guy who came to I almost said Terry came to trying to do Jesse. And he's the one who came to him because I think he had put out some like documents or something. And then John Matthews was like, "What the fuck? How did my name get in there?" And then kind of came to him and then was offering him like the real story. And then along the way, he was supposed to be like a witness for him, and then he dropped out last second. Told Jesse that it was due to them threatening him. I believe they were threatening to take away his VA benefits. Which is pretty for anyone who's been in the military or gone out or retired or whatever. Those are usually pretty substantial. So I mean, I know lots of buddies because a lot of people know I was active duty for a while. I know a lot of buddies who got out and got got disability even when they're not really that fucked up, but VA disability and be making a couple $1,000s a month or whatever, like quite a bit, depending on what rating you get. But so they essentially were, according to him, were threatening his benefits, so which would have been a huge financial hit for him. And then that turned into he brought those accusations to the court and filed a separate suit of some sort. And then they had to do a whole other thing and get some sort of other bigger judge to get involved because he's accusing the FBI of witness tampering. And when that happened, they put them under, I think all parties under a gag order. I believe. So, I mean, I don't know. So we've still been waiting for that. I think that's been probably at least years now that's been the case. So I don't know. I just know there was a period of time I was supposed to get him on, and because it was like I think that there was supposed to be another court date coming up soon, and the idea was that that was supposed to fucking we were of the thinking that was gonna fucking be done. But all right, man, we're in an hour 50 here, so I think we're probably at a good point. We've covered a lot of topics. This was a fun one today. You want to let people know where they can find you at, and maybe whatever you're working on these days, if you got anything else coming up soon.
Yeah, well, I'm finally gonna have the time. My schedule's been in like disarray, dude. I've been like, I have family coming soon, so I'm excited about that. It'll be awesome. But yeah, so I should be able to focus and finally get my new solo episode out at the very least by the weekend. So that'll be nice. Finally, I feel like I can get that out of my system. But
a hint for the topic?
I mean, it's pretty much in the line of these. I was basically trying to corroborate Program to Kill with all and like link it with a lot of these different cults seem to be tied to one organization and have a lot of overlapping threads. So that I'm trying to figure it out because I have like certain narratives that I want to use that fits well with these clips that I think are very unique and haven't seen the light of day as often. And I think they're kind of memory hold in a lot of ways. And that includes like David Berkowitz literally mentioning Moloch to Maury Terry in a 97 interview. And I'm like, holy shit, like, describing the doctrine that they just subscribe to. And again, like these different occult gods, they demand different sacrifices, and people have to understand that. Like this is they call it the old religion, the ancient religion. So it's clearly nothing new as far as they have deep tenets in within this doctrine that they wholly subscribe to. And so I think that it's going to be in that vein, no doubt. And I might even include something to do with these McDonald murders, because she kind of triggered something in me because I'm reading it and I'm like, dude, like it just, the idea that it's so spot on perfect, and then it falls into this sort of Gary Webb sort of connection with what was happening with the drug running at the time. I mean, it just fits. So we'll see, but that will more or less be along the lines of what I end up coming out on the other side with. But anyway, beyond that, oh yeah, and I did read that the archdiocese in DC was, I was reading Montgomery Sibley, or Montgomery Blair Sibley, I think is the guy's name. He's an attorney for Deborah Jean Palfrey, the DC Madam, and he was one of her first attorneys ever. And he has been fighting since her death to get the release of, to basically be able to legally release all those, like, pretty much names of companies, names of individuals who were on the client list, right? And I mean, it seems like he claims, and so did she before she died, that it implicated an individual who was, one of the two people running for president in 2016 that inevitably, were the final candidates. And I found that to be interesting. And it included among her clients the Archdiocese of DC. And I just thought, fucking, of course, man. Like, are you kidding?
Makes sense.
Mm-hmm. But at some point, I will have to ask you about the Trump RFK Jr. and Vivek LP thing, because I'm just curious your thoughts. Because it's, at the very least, it's kind of a precedent-setting thing as far as but to what degree it really matters, I'm not sure. I mean, I think the only.
I think it's this week or next week, so we might have more to say on that then.
Right.
So yeah, but yeah, either way, yeah, we'll talk about that if you want to, for sure, next week, or maybe even the following week, because maybe it'll be over by then, so maybe we'll have more thoughts.
Yeah, that's
but
true.
Yeah, I don't know. I find it interesting. I mean, I don't really give a shit about the LP overall generally,
I know,
but yeah, but for those who liked this, especially, I know I kind of catfish a lot of the Tower Gang audience. Go check out my channel, No Way Jose. I stream these there. I also stream on Tower Gang, but if you're only watching on Tower Gang, you're missing. For one, I'm not going to do that forever. But also, because I think more people will start moving over time. But definitely go check out my other show. You're missing half the content if you're only watching Already Dead on the Tower Gang. I have all my other No Way Jose shows. Like I said, tomorrow I'm doing an episode on the false memory syndrome stuff. So that'll be awesome. A good one. But that, that ties into, if you guys want to support me, you get that stuff early, because that episode won't come out till next week, but I'm streaming it to my patrons tomorrow. It'll be available for you after the stream as well. But yeah, it's patreon.com. It's No Way Jose 2020, the lowest level. You also get you guys can come on as a StreamYard guest if you'd like to. You can be one of the talking heads on here. You can ask questions, whatever. And also, the highest levels of my sponsors, I read them off every episode. My co-host, Toad of Tower Gang, he's at Tower Gang Toad, at Abrogate D's, at ZOVERACK, then also at _Infinite Zeal, then Jacob Daniel of the Biblical Anarchy podcast. I've been on there many, many times. We started out in this game together, at Biblical Anarchy, and then Tim Tuttle at Jolyon Klebold, the homie, and also my buddy Will Bell, who makes this delicious Rabbit Eye blueberry wine. Highly recommend it. It is delicious, although be careful, only buy one, because you'll go nuts. You'll probably drink it all in the same night. But yeah, definitely, that's I think all I got. So follow me on Twitter at Tower Gang Jose. It's been a fun episode. Thanks everyone who showed up. Keep showing up, call in, ask questions. You guys are what keep this going, keep us moving. But yeah, with that, we are out.